Be able to be heard now.
Good morning. Good
Welcome.
morning. So it is today, August 30th, 2020. And I'm going to begin with an opening prayer, opening spiritual mind treatment by Ernest Holmes. The title of which is, I Have Complete Confidence in the Law of Mind. So join me if you would. He says, the good in which you believe can triumph over every evil you have experienced. You have a silent partnership with the infinite. This partnership has never been dissolved. It never can be. You are to have implicit confidence in your own ability, knowing that it is the nature of thought and belief to externalize itself in your affairs, knowing that you are the thinker. You're going to turn resolutely from every sense of lack, want, and limitation and declare that the perfect law of God is operating in, for, and through you. Say to yourself now, along with me, I have complete confidence in my knowledge and understanding of the law of good. I not only know what the law is, I know how to use it. I know that I shall obtain definite results through the law and use of it. Knowing this, I have confidence in my ability to use the law and using it daily for specific purposes. Gradually, I build up an unshakable faith, both in the law and the possibility of demonstrating it. Therefore, today I declare that the law of the Lord is perfect in everything I do. Today I believe in divine guidance. Today I believe that underneath are the everlasting arms. Today I rest in this divine assurance and this divine security. I know not only that all is well with my soul, my spirit, and my mind, all is well with my affairs. And so it is.
That's beautiful.
So it is. So it is.
Let's put them on mute.
So, oh yes. So our title today is The Power of the, I'm doing something with the computer. The power is always in the present moment. The power that you have to create your life is always in the present moment, always now, here and now. And, we often get stuck in the past and say, well, this is what I experienced in the past, even yesterday, even a few moments ago. But your power to change that is not based on what happened to you in the past, but right here, right now. And I didn't realize this. Bob has been reviewing the book that I read in 1978, which is a Seth book called The Nature of Personal Reality by Jane Roberts. And in it, he found what all my underlines and what he was reading and listening to, because you can listen to it on YouTube, is that that's where I got that. I knew I got that from one of my early teachers. I just thought it was one of my science of mind teachers, and maybe they repeated it too. But it was from Seth. The point of power is in the present.
1974.
Written and published in 1974. and it's such an important point. in in the class that I'm teaching, the Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural, the last chapter we did is called Time Space dash Space Time, and it's all about differentiating our present dimension, which is the third dimension, with the fifth dimension, which is what we know as spirit, or we know as the dimension that we enter in meditation and lots of other experiences. It's in that place where time loses its sequential, what do I want to call, characteristic that we know in our present tense, that we know in the physical. In other words, the past was very real, where the future is unknown and the present is now. In the fifth dimension, everything is happening simultaneously. And that's hard for us to grasp our mind about in our creature bodies. But there are enough spiritual masters and teachings that say this is true. And so even what some of us believe of as past lives, Seth reminds us, no, it's all happening simultaneously. Because, and not only is everything happening simultaneously with things you have experienced, there are multiple probable lives in the past, in the present, and in the future. And at first it seems mind-boggling and confusing. And how is that possible? And my summation of the whole chapters that were 14 and 15, chapters 14 and 15, is that mind, God, source, whatever you want to call it, is insatiable for experiences. And so everything we experience, God or mind experiences, and it wants lots of experiences. So what has that got to do with you? And I'm going to try to do a screen share here, right, to show you a graphic that that Joe Dispenza uses to let's see. No, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I was going to. I'm just going to not try to be complicated today. But in it, Joe Dispenza says you go from being someone, that you enter meditation, you become no one. And then the last stage is everyone. And you go from this time to no time to every time.
To all time.
All time. So it can be mind-boggling from our understanding here. But when you allow for that possibility, that's what I would invite you to do. If this is a strange concept to you, I invite you to allow for the possibility that that could be so. And if so, that means that you don't have to be stuck with the history that you remember. As a matter of fact, you may have already changed some of those already. If you're like me, you've changed some what you considered traumas to a different meaning. You gave it a different meaning, and now it's not a trauma.
Well, and I'd like to consider that trauma can become triumph. And for a lot of us, a lot of our past traumas, when we review them and we learn from them, become triumphs. And I want to pick up on the business of what Seth was talking about. In every experience that you have in the now, in this present moment, connects you at an energetic level with any experience like itself that you've ever had throughout time. And you can borrow from all of those experiences. In fact, at an energetic level, you do. Have you ever had the experience of having had a thought or connection with someone, and suddenly that connection feels so much bigger than the connection warrants? That is, the appearance of the connection warrants. And because it is so much bigger than that, you can't believe that there's so much more depth to it. And then you have these, what we would call intuitive flashes, or more information comes with regards to the connection, and you're thinking, where did all this come from? Well, what we don't realize is the past is fluid. We can borrow from it and change it just as we can create our future. Not only that, but what Seth was also talking about, that Judith just mentioned, was that when we have an experience in mind and then we go to another thought, that thought continues to collect information and data. It's kind of like Google. When you hit Google and all of a sudden you get a whole page of things that you can go to. That information continues to gather. And when you go back to that experience, that information and everything that it's gathered is also available. I know this sounds very complex, and actually it is. The point of power is now. But that point of power allows you to access literally everything that's ever happened in your life at any point in time, if not cognitively, energetically, and emotionally. And that's a powerful thing to realize, that how connected we are, not only to that inventory, but also to the inventory of experiences to those around us. If you've ever been in a long-term relationship, and I think we've been in one fairly long-term, 33 years, Judith will say, I was just thinking, I would like this. And I was thinking, oh my God, I was just thinking the same thing, and how dare you take my thoughts? And but we'll do this because, you see, we're in each other's field. And that energetic field allows us also to have access to more than even our own thinking, but the thinking that is beyond and richer than that. So imagine then that the past is fluid, the future is possibility, and the present is the power to create not only from right this moment, but to create out of everything that's ever happened to you, and then to change what's happened. That is the meaning of it. Now, when I say change the meaning of it, what I mean by that is imagine a trauma that was a trauma until it became a victory, until it became a triumph. And then every time you look back at that story, you're no longer the victim, you're the hero. And when you become the hero, you then can create out of that experience a new reality rather than having your reality be based on the trauma. So when we look at changing our beliefs, when we state a belief now, this is what I believe now, it has to go back and ask itself, how does that relate to everything that's ever happened? Is there any data to support that? And if there is, then the story gets changed. Now, it's hard to do that initially because we're locked into the story rather than to the history as a possibility. And so what I'm suggesting today is that you look at everything that's ever happened to you as a series of possibilities still open-ended and available for change. That's a really different way of looking at it than I think typically we look at things.
Absolutely. So Seth really, he says what Ernest Holmes taught and many masters have taught is that you create your life based on your beliefs. You actually attract people, places, things, circumstances based on your beliefs. Sometimes I used to wonder, well, how does that work when you have more than one person involved, because they have their beliefs too. But he told a beautiful story, or he gave an example. It wasn't a story he said, let's say you believe that life is dangerous and that people are not to be trusted. There are other people who believe life is hard. Everybody steals. I think and I need to steal to get my good. And so those two set of beliefs can create and attract one condition, a house being broken into and stolen. But one is the victim and one is the perpetrator. And the victim is the one that believes that life is scary and you can't trust people. And the other one believes everybody steals and this is how I get my good. And they are attracted to that situation together to work out, to demonstrate that belief. So I always used to wonder, how does that work in situations? And even with couples, sometimes, I know I did, you become a couple and you go, what? How did I ever choose this person? Well, you both had beliefs that matched, if not desires that matched. Mm-hmm. You had beliefs that matched and we were fulfilling that. You can change your beliefs and change the relationship. No one says you have to stay in there forever.
Well, and I think an example of that is a person, either male or female, believes themselves to have little value and is grateful to be with anybody that will be with them. The person that chooses them doesn't feel they have very much value because they haven't been able to choose a valuable person. So we have two people who don't believe they have any value in relationship with each other, each of them hoping to eventually have value and often at the cost of the other. And so the battle for having value is that both of them have been attracted as a result of feeling that they were both victims of not being whole and complete people. And they never can complete a relationship because of the incompleteness within themselves. I want to shift, if we can, to something else that Seth talks about that we know a lot about because we actually used to teach a certification course for hypnosis. And it's hypnosis. But the first thing I want to say is that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And the best example I can think of that, if you will, is eating. And when you're hypnotized when you're eating, and how you're hypnotized when you're eating is that all of your senses are working together coherently, and that's why you smile. That is, the taste, the smell, the feel, and the actual activity of eating are congruent. And when all of the senses are congruent, aligned, or working together, or the ones that aren't being used are silent, we are at a very highly suggestible state. meaning that ideas for change or change of beliefs are now available to us. That's when we can have the most profound awakening, when we're hypnotized. We're hypnotized when we fall in love. When we meet the eyes of the lover that we're going to have, everything changes. Time changes, taste changes, smell changes, everything changes. And what happens? You're at home thinking about the person that you've just fallen in love with, and the phone rings and you knew they were going to call, and you knew what they were going to say. Because at an energetic level, you've been hypnotized. And so what I want to suggest for the hypnosis piece of this is that we are at our available state for change when we can either entrain all of the senses, engage all of the senses, or when the ones that we're not going to use become silent. And that's a very important thing. And where that really becomes important is that we're so used to now multitasking. Have you ever been on the computer while you're on the phone? Have you ever been listening to music while you're driving? Have you ever been doing at least two or three things? And what happens is the senses then have to divide, and none of them can work coherently to totally absorb or be involved in the experience. And the best example I can think of when that's changed is when we go to a live concert. And when you go to a live concert, all of a sudden, you're crying and you're laughing and you're singing and your entire being is transformed. You could be sick and unable to stand up and you're suddenly dancing. And the reason for that is you've been hypnotized in that your experience, every part of you is engaged. And so the suggestion I'm going to make today that I'd ask you all to carry with you for the rest of the week is see how single-minded you can be in your activities. See if you can give your total attention to watching a bird or a squirrel or reading a book or watching a program or listening to the person that's talking to you. See if you can give your total undivided attention, that is your sense of taste, your sense of smell, your sense, every feeling you've got, and see how that compares to what that experience is like when not. Now, think about when you first fell in love. Was there anything that you didn't notice? You noticed the way they winked, you noticed the hair, you noticed the way they moved, you noticed all kinds of intimate details about that person because every sense that you had was, oh my God, I'm in love. We need to fall in love with being in the present. If we could fall in love with being in the present at a sensory level, we then access at an energetic level everything like itself, everything that's connected to that. And that is huge. The reason that many of us can't fall in love with life is we're too busy being divided with all the things that we have in mind and in activity and in action that we're all trying to do at the same time. Try to meditate while you're trying to follow your list. You can't do it. So what I'm suggesting is something different than trying to meditate with your eyes closed. I'm suggesting meditating as you're walking by really walking. Meditate by bicycling and really bicycle. Feel the breeze. Don't have the radio on. Don't watch anything else. Bicycle and ask yourself, what am I doing? How does, and experience it at every level that you possibly can. You'll get feedback because if you bicycle like I do, your muscles will tell you that they're tired or they want to rest. So, but that engaging in the moment, you see, if we're going to change beliefs that we have that have been hurting us, we have to be motivated by being so present and so powerfully able that we can do that. And we become able when we're in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So Seth uses that example of hypnosis. He says, it seems the changes can be so profound, and you wonder, how can that happen? Because it doesn't happen in what we call ordinary consciousness. And I know for me that's true. I went to a hypnotist when I was in graduate school, and under a lot of stress, I had really strong back pain all of a sudden. So I went to a chiropractor, and he recommended I stop smoking, stop drinking coffee, and stop drinking alcohol.
Which really makes you tense.
So I said, oh, boy, to do that, I got to go to a hypnotist. So I did. And she did like a guided meditation. And she said I would remember everything, and I did. And I walked out, and I stopped all three of those with no withdrawal. And if you've ever stopped coffee or stopped smoking. It's hard to do without withdrawal. No withdrawal symptoms. There's just no desire anymore. And I go, my gosh, that is powerful stuff. But there's no hocus pocus to it. And he says you don't need somebody else to hypnotize you. He said all that you need for hypnotism is focus, really strong focus. And often the hypnotist will say, listen to my voice and my voice only. You won't be distracted by any sounds from the outside. And so you're giving that person complete focus, your complete attention. And it goes in, the mind accepts it, and it manifests. So if we can do that, we can change anything based on our beliefs. We have to change the belief. And a lot of people say, well, how do I do that? I believe it. How can I change it? It can be done. And you do that. I've been working with it myself. I do that by changing the past, changing the history. In other words, I have some consequences in my life right now that I'm not happy with my health. And I say, well, I have that because of my past, because of this, that, or the other in my past. I'm now changing that. Well, it wasn't always my past. There were other times when that wasn't true. That was an alternative experience, or what is it, a probable life? Yeah. I'm choosing that probable history. And so then I can accept it in my present. Do you see what I mean? And so nobody can change our beliefs but us. People try to change our beliefs all the time. That's what advertisements are. That's what political speeches are. They're always trying to change people's beliefs, and it's hard to do. But advertisements on television are one of the very best ways that they've learned to do it, and they do everything they can to get you to give them your entire focus.
They engage the senses at a speed that causes you to constantly want to follow. But you gave me an idea, something we could actually do when you're going to sit down and read a book, or you're going to do something that you could say, and I will not be distracted by anything around me. I will only hear and see and feel what I'm experiencing in relationship to the task at hand. You could actually be the hypnotist in your own life and say to yourself, as of right here and right now, I'm going to give my full and complete attention, and nothing can distract me, nothing can take me from it. And this is what I know. And state what you know. Now do what you're doing and know what you know, and watch how that borrows from your past everything that knows itself like that. Every one of us has had a triumph and a victory. Every one of us has ever stopped falling and gotten up and walked after the age of 2 or 1 or whatever age you start walking, has had enough triumph that we can borrow from that. And we don't have to borrow from the falls, we can borrow from the walks. We can borrow from the times that work. But the preface for that could be really valuable, to basically say, I'm about to hypnotize my senses into being so fully present that I experience everything in the here and now that's available to me. And then make that point of power the time in which you make your statement. How many times have you said, I'm an incredible person, I wish I were. I'm a smart person, if only I weren't so dumb. And right behind the words, you're going to hear very often the negative, and often that gets the listening rather than the listening to, I am a powerful, extraordinary, wonderful, amazing human being. And if I don't see that all the time, it's because I'm not a good observer. And now I'm becoming a better observer, and I'm going to borrow the observations I have from past victories. I can do this. I'm doing it. It's done. So those suggestions can begin to change. You can upend any belief by simply not having it be forward enough to be able to move or act or cause you to take any course of action.
Exactly. And Seth also has a chapter called Trance, Trance, Trance. And the idea is he describes all the different trances that we don't realize are trances. We think of when we go into meditation, especially guided meditation, that's a trance-like state. But he says you don't have to even be relaxed to be hypnotized. You just have to have focus. You just have to have your attention all there. And so, as Bob was saying, there are lots of events where you are hypnotized and don't realize it. If you went to a big football game and there were 20,000 people in the bleachers watching the same game, shouting the same shouts and cheers and whatnot, and you're giving it your total focus, you're hypnotized
Mhm.
by what's going on right there. So concerts, football games, um, anything, any lots and lots of experiences. So why not do it to use it to change your beliefs? You're the only one who can change them. And when you change them, the experience must follow. You will attract. There's a little lag time
Mhm.
because we're in the physical. There's a little lag time before it actually manifests. But I guarantee you, when you change your beliefs, you will attract a different experience in your life.
Imagine that there's a shadow that's changed, and it takes a little while for the shadow to integrate into the being that you are. That there's a complete outline, there's a complete body that matches the new experience you've had, that is looking to merge with the you that you are, to become one. The concert experience is an extraordinary one where, if you notice, it totally envelops you, it totally enriches you. I think what we need is more experiences that are powerful and beautiful and amazing, that are current rather than historic. Some people have stopped having life experiences. They stopped a long time ago, which is why their memory for the past is so much better than their memory for the present, because there's nothing in the
There's
present
nothing
to
going
remember.
on.
Yeah, there's nothing that's really that compelling. Allow yourself to be compelled by the present moment by creating the things in the present moment that you want to be compelled by. Allow yourself to be engaged in that and watch what happens when that happens. I love to drive. I don't turn the radio on when I drive. And the reason I don't turn the radio on when I drive is I want to hear the motor. When I shift gears, I want to feel the shift. When I let the clutch out, I want to know what the timing feels like and how it works. When I go into a corner, I want to feel the curve in the corner. You see, I want to be driving. One of the ways I have driven in the past is to try to get comfortable and pretend I'm not driving by having so many other things going on, which is food, music, conversation, talk, and everything else. It's like the driving isn't the driving. If you're in the car and you're driving, then why not have driving be what you're doing? I think one of the reasons we've had love affairs with cars for so long, because when we get into them, we are transported into another world and we love it, at least in the beginning.
Would you elaborate on that, like you did with me, like driving your Porsche and what you listened for and what you
Yeah,
experienced?
I remember one of the times when I used to race my Porsche, I would get up to 100 miles an hour or so. When I got to 100 miles an hour, all of a sudden, I could see patterns on the road. I could see what everyone else was doing, including the police. But I could see the patterns. I could see I knew when somebody was about to change lanes a half a block down the road before they even seemed to know themselves. Because as you get fast, as you move into that total experience, totally engaged and you're totally there, because if you're not there, you're going to get killed. All of a sudden you see a whole world that you didn't see before. You see patterns, you see rhythms, you see time and space changing literally in front of you. Just because you've doubled the speed that you were traveling before, that's not the speed you normally travel at. And it requires your full undivided attention, because anything that you do is suddenly immediately gives you feedback. If you're driving 100 miles an hour and you turn the steering wheel even a fraction, you have a bigger turn than you planned on.
But what if they're not driving 100 miles an hour? We don't want to encourage you to drive 100.
Okay, 120 is good. No, well, but what I'm saying, turn the radio off, drive knowingly, feeling the car, listening to the sounds, looking at the highway, looking at everything that you're doing and saying, I'm doing this. What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And experience, and you'll notice there's a rhythm. If you've ever been in traffic for any amount of time, you get to recognize the cars that are 3 cars ahead of you. In fact, if you're like me, you may start making friends with the person who passed that. He did a good job on that one. Yeah, he cut a little short on that one. And you begin to develop relationships with all the people that you're traveling with. When you pull over to the rest stop, you almost want to say, yeah, you did good. I watched you the last 5 miles. And cars they'll let each other in if they're similar models. And there's all kinds of relationship stuff going on the highway that you never notice, because most of the time you're not driving, you're doing something else.
Well, our time is up.
Oh my
It went
God.
fast. But I just want to change. I just want to summarize and say that the point of power is always in the present, because the present is the only time you can change your belief. And you do have the power to change your belief. And try working with the past and change the past. Give yourself an alternate or other experience because you had those also, and not do a cause effect because that happened. This is the way I am, or this is what happened. You have infinite possibility available for you, all based on the power of your belief.
Make up an ending.
Make up an ending you like.
Make up a story that you like, that you could actually have done, and that's my new story. Because the one you've been telling yourself that's based on the truth isn't true. It's a story. If you don't like the story you've been living under, then create a story you can live on top of, a new story. And you can actually do that with a new, and watch the energy change when you walk around. I won $1 million. I can't collect it until next year. It's amazing, but I'm actually a wealthy person and I love it, but I don't have any money that I can spend right now, but I got it. As opposed to, oh my God, I can't imagine how I'm going to get through next year. You can forward your past that you made up in a way that allows you to live into it. And that's what we're talking about.
It is.
Talking about that, if you would like to support us, you certainly can. You can go to our website, and we appreciate your support. The support has been, we can actually use it this way. It actually works this way.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
this is the camera.
Yeah.
We're at the virtual background.
There we go. And we're delighted to get the support that we've been getting. You guys have been wonderful out there in supporting our ministry. And
there's a donate button or a donation.
And it's huge. It makes a big difference for us. If you like the artwork behind you, that's the piece of artwork that I created. Judith found that and posted it, and it makes a great background. And I've been sitting here thinking, damn, I love that piece. I made that piece. Surround yourself with your own good. Surround yourself with pictures of you having done the things you want. If you haven't got any real ones, make some up. Take mental pictures of yourself having the success that you'd like to have, and then believe in them and watch how that changes everything.
So let's close.
Yes.
Would you do a closing prayer?
Yes. So I know that who I really am, deep inside and everywhere, present, past, and future, is an extraordinary being of infinite possibility. I know that who I am in this very moment is an extraordinary expression of God in action. I know right now that the hunger I have for a greater, bigger, more wonderful, perfect life has already occurred, and all I need to do now is step into it. And I say yes to that extraordinary opportunity. I say yes to the love and to the light and to the joy and to all that is there for me and for everyone that's around me. I celebrate the gift of life that has been given that keeps giving back. I know this to be true. I say thank you, and we say together, and so it is. Thank you one and all for being here. For those of you that are on Zoom, we'll continue having